Hello. We are here with one of my favorite people, a longtime amazing man who has done location for some of the most iconic films. Kokayi Ampah, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. I didn't do locations for Roots. I was the PA on Roots too, so I'm not quite as old as the Roots, the original one, but I was a PA on Roots too. But then that show got me into location. So I started on Roots 2 in 70. In 78, I started in location. So yeah,
Also too, didn't you work on Amistad?
I did do Amistad. I did do
Yeah.
Amistad. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so without further ado, we're here to talk about some great films this month, in Black History Month. And this film that Kakai suggested to me was so amazing and so well done. Um, I was just blown away. Can you introduce the film?
Well, the what is it? The soundtrack to a coup, isn't it? Coup d'etat. That's nominated this year as one of the finalists for feature film documentaries. And it takes place during the 60s, 1960s, when African nations were starting to organize, and especially the Congo. And the United States did not like the leader because he was not necessarily beholden to the United States or to the Western powers, and that he was organizing the African nations to come together and look at Africa, or even talk about becoming the United States of Africa. And so that included the Congo. South Africa wasn't free at that point. Mandela wasn't out at the time. He came. Mandela was released a little after this happened. But other nations that had fought for their independence, but it also included Egypt and some other nations in Africa. Um, and colonial countries, France in particular, and some Dutch and other countries were still getting benefits, as they still do, that are paid tribute, or paid what I call it tribute, but are getting a lot of financial aid from those countries, even though they are supposedly, quote unquote, independent now. And you can see, when you really look at what's happening now with China's involvement with Africa, in terms of, and how a lot of countries are aligning themselves with China, and China's over there building railroads and stuff like that. And the United States, I don't know, just always seems to find itself on the wrong end of history in terms of what they do and how they
One of
do it.
America's most popular emissaries arrives in the troubled Congo on a State Department's goodwill mission. Louis is found swinging outraged Radio Moscow, which blasted Armstrong's visit as a diversionary tactic.
The people of the Congo are entitled to build up their country in peace and freedom.
Hold me close and hold me fast.
We were to go to Elizabethville to attend a concert given by Louis Armstrong.
How much money do the Central Intelligence Agency has poured into the Congo?
I don't know. Are you prepared to say?
I certainly, of course, don't know. I wonder if it's quite honest to represent our policy as completely angelic.
And seated out on the terrace was a man I recognized. He said, "Well, you have to assassinate Lumumba."
He used those words.
Yes.
But who ordered him?
He said, "President Eisenhower."
In the UN, when Khrushchev took off his shoe and was beating that shoe, and the interpreter said, "How dare you?" Talking about America. Khrushchev was saying, "I love you," but it was the interpreter who hated America. You understand what I mean?
But did he have rhythm?
Rhythm is my business.
Конец Владимира колониальному рабству! Долой его и похоронить его чем глубже, тем лучше!
And like, we're down to one gender, and now
So it's really, and the State Department used jazz players as ambassadors, more or less,
used
to
is used is the
use
word.
exactly. And they looked at Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong, and was really interesting. Because Louis does that grinning, yeah, man, but that was just his mode. But he really talks about when he says how he felt he was used, and when he gets in about because they used a concert of his to actually formulate a plan for the coup. And it brought all of the players who were putting all the pieces in place there as an excuse to be there in the country as they formulated this coup. Yeah.
It was very interesting to me because it was very significant here because Africa getting independence also was speaking to the people here in the United States because we were, segregated, we weren't allowed to have certain jobs. So that was like, so I think that they wanted to shut that down as far as the colonialized nations because it was like sort of like freeing for everybody and they wanted to cut that out.
Well, the thing was too, though, that you had activists here, in particular Malcolm X, who was aligning himself with that United States of Africa. And he was then talking about taking the United States and charging them in the UN for human rights violations. And he, like Dr. King, it was all right. Like Dr. King was trying to get into, restaurants and bathrooms and stuff like that. But when Dr. King came out against the war, came out in an international issue, that couldn't be tolerated because that was starting to align itself not just with the liberation of Black people here in the country, but aligning itself with young whites who were fighting against the war. Now that movement became really big and really dangerous to the power structure. And then when you get Malcolm, who is now talking about forming, now he's outside of the Nation of Islam, and he's uniting with other Muslims around the world, one, and then African nations, and especially independence thinking African nations. That was an alignment that they just couldn't have. There's so many things. If are you familiar with the Red Summer of 1919?
No.
Okay. So in 1919, a lot of Black military, because the United States military was segregated for such a long time. But during World War I, a lot of Black troops went to Europe and fought with the French. I mean, they were still American soldiers, but what happened is when they went there and they were in Europe, they didn't have the restrictions they had here in the United States. They could go in any establishment they wanted to eat. They were treated like regular human beings. And that after they got back, I don't know if it's coincidentally, whatever, but that was one of the bloodiest summers for lynchings because they didn't want, it's called, and look it up, the Red Summer of 1919, because they had experienced what it was to be treated as an equal human being. And they just weren't going to do it. We're over here fighting against, these people for freedom, and we don't have it at home. And it was the same thing when you got into World War II. And it was starting to awaken this giant here in the United States to say, no, it's got to be more than this. We're just tired of this. You're into Jim Crow, then into the civil rights, and now you're starting to get into the '60s. Now you're getting the activists, you're getting the Stokely Carmichaels, H. Rap Browns, you're getting the Panthers. All of that is really going. And these, you got, if you Fred Hampton, you're familiar with Fred Hampton. He was so dangerous because he was a Panther, but he wasn't speaking just to race. He was thinking to class.
To me, that's what it's about. Even right now, The one percenters right now, even in this country, are just they're telling, these people like, oh, see, we've done something for you. We've, got rid of Mexicans, and we've gotten rid of, black people in their DEI, and we've done all these things. We haven't given you a dime. We haven't elevated you at all. We haven't given you better jobs. We haven't given you more money, but you're better than those people. So if you think about it, if all the, black, brown, poor, disenfranchised people went against the people with the money, that's an uneven battle.
Well, that's the whole thing. And if you talk about DEI, you think about black people getting jobs. But the biggest beneficiaries from DEI overall and the civil rights are white women. That's
Exactly.
who's got the majority of the jobs. And so if you say we're going to get rid of DEI, well then, this is meaning somebody else is not going to get hired. And it's been primarily white women. I don't, and it's they didn't. There was another. I wish I had it, but they talk about and they broke it down by different groups who benefited the most from DEI, and black people were very bottom. I
About
mean,
7 or 8.
yeah, about 7-8%. Yeah, you've seen that. It's about 7 or 8%. And so, but the whole thing is, and I mean, it's all that bluster that we're going to do these tariffs. So he goes on. The current president goes on to talk about these tariffs he's going to impose on Canada and Mexico.
Mexico.
And then Canada says, okay, well, we're imposing that. And then all of a sudden today, well, no, we're going to pull that back. We're not going to do it. It's all that bluster. It's the problem is that, and I posted something today with this woman from Appalachia said, I don't care about who's coming over here. My we're fighting. The people who are selling us drugs on the corner are not from Mexico. They're my cousins. You know what I mean? They are whoever's with all of this stuff, and that really I don't care about all that. And that's the problem is that the people who could benefit the most from some DEI or something are the people who voted for him and thinking that they're really protecting their country, and they're really not. You can't
Because they
have
bought the lie.
because somebody like Musk who has no understanding of anything poverty, who's going to talk about what programs shouldn't be. So yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it was kind of a disheartening and hard for me to watch, and my heart broke because, you know, that's to me like the whole thing about having Snoop Dogg and Nelly and all these famous black people perform for Trump's inauguration kind of I thought about the whole CIA and how they had all of those wonderful black talented artists go over there, and they were probably thinking they were like joining together or doing some kind of something because I don't know what Snoop, I don't think Snoop just did it for the money because he didn't need the money. Nelly maybe, but maybe they thought that they were going to be part of some kind of like, you know, offering to compromise to do something for black people, and all they do is they use those people.
I just think it's totally different. I just think that these guys, these people who did this um, in this election, just didn't care. They
Mm,
believed they were above any whatever. Louis Armstrong and them are a whole different time period, and really believed that they were doing something for the nation and pulling something together, and didn't see it. There's no way that these young people, or these people, I call them young, because they're younger than me. Everybody's younger than me at this point. But is
me
that
too.
no, you're younger than me. But that they don't know, because look at what Snoop had put out 4 years ago
Oh my God,
about
it was like total contradiction. I was like,
like
who is that man? They should have a conversation with each other.
exactly like anybody who does that is Uncle Tom. Da 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 da. He went on, and then here he is, in a suit and a tie, and he's using the N word in what he's talking about, and you look in the crowd, and a few of them are bopping their heads. It's just really sad. And
Did you notice in the documentary in the coup d'etat, which was kind of really, so they had the juxtapose this wonderful music with this very heavy civil war, and how they like showed like tap dancing, so,
mm,
sort of like in their like, and it's like, to me it's like it was like sort of like a subtle like hint about how the musicians were being used to me.
right, right, and it's totally, it's see, it's. I did a film called A Tale of Two Inner Cities, and it was based on my growing up in Minnesota, starting in the 1950 when I was born to 77 when I left. And in around 1960, the freeway system came in, and how it was so planned to go straight through over 800 African American communities. It went through about 1,200 communities altogether, but 800 to 900 of them were African American communities. And they systematically declared those communities slums so it would justify them going through those communities. But those were the lifebloods of those communities. And so many residents, so many what do we call it, business communities were torn up and split in half because of these freeways.
I
So
bet you
these,
what they did too was because my sister, she was a real estate appraiser, and she had to do some of that in Riverside, and they
mm,
were going to put the train through. And what they tried to do is they tried to make it so that they would appraise those houses at a much lower rate. They're
yeah,
going to clear out the area, but they're going to appraise those areas at a much lower rate to not give those people money. And then she caught on, and she's like, "Oh, no, no, no."
right, right. And that's the whole thing. You see, the people, when they lost their properties, they never got enough money to rebuild. The only thing they could do is become tenants. And once you go from being a landowner to a tenant, your political power is gone. So I mean, it's systematically these situations have just constantly occurred. Now we're talking about what two or three other films as well. But I mean, but that film I had when you contacted me, I was just had watched this film, and I was just like, oh my goodness, because I remember that time, But I was around. This happened in the '60s, so I was 10 in 1960. So I wasn't really up on everything that was going on. I was just starting to get it. But then in '68 and all of that, I did know about Mary McKeeba, and Stokely, and of course H-Rap, because I graduated from high school in '68, which was one of the most volatile years there was. I mean, in high school, in my senior year, King was killed in April, and Bobby Kennedy was killed on graduation night. You know what I mean? So, and then that summer they had the Democratic convention in Chicago, and then at 18 I became eligible for the draft. So I was totally involved there because by that time, because I was a little younger than other guys that had already gone to the war and had either not come back alive or had come back all shot up, and for what? And so that protest was really a part of my youth at 18. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a crazy time. Remember my brother, Valley, it was Valley College back then. It's called Northridge. CSUN was Valley College back then, and my brother had gotten a scholarship to go play there for basketball. And he was like looking at the protests, and then they told him, get out of here, go home. And instead of going home, my brother, of course, went down further to watch and ended up getting arrested.
Uh,
So it was a very volatile time, and it even touched inside my family in California.
it touched everybody. It touched everybody, and we all know somebody who went, or whose uncle didn't come back, or whatever brother didn't come back, or whatever. So yeah,
I've watched a lot of movies on war, and it's like such to me it's like a excuse my French, it's such a chicken shit thing. You can't use your words and negotiate, so you go to a lower common denominator, because why are we? still in the supposedly educated, all of the electronics, all of the engineering, why are we still going there?
You know, here's the thing. And you look at the Bible, and I mean, I'm not preaching because definitely I'm not, theologian or anything like that. But if you look at the stories in the Bible, people have not changed.
Mm-mm.
Technology has changed, but people, the same greed, envy, all that stuff is still the same. And we still do the same basic things to resolve things, and using our power, whatever it is. I mean, if you look at some of the so called heroes in the Bible, like David, I mean, if you look at his story, it's raggedy. It's really raggedy.
Totally raggedy.
you know, it's, and that was a chosen person by God. After the whole thing with that he did, and then what he did to get his wife and all that other stuff that went on, it's totally raggedy. But the people have not changed. So the basic core values or lack thereof are still in play. Now we have all the different tools, and we have bigger weapons to do our bidding, or to threaten to do our bidding, but people have not changed, and that's
It's
that's
true.
just that's just basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sad thing to me. The story about the Congo is you have all these African nations. It's like if they could have just bound together as one, but they couldn't. They had to, like, all that ego back and forth of who's going to be in charge, and all of that stuff, and then they lost.
No, they lost, but you also see what the forces were not going to let them get there.
Yeah.
That I mean, the forces were not going to let them get there because the forces understood where the power would be. I mean, if you even look at, for me, even during the Obama administration, the whole thing with Gaddafi. I mean, yeah, Gaddafi was accused of doing some funding some things, but the real threat to Gaddafi was he had a country that he had found a way to bring water into the desert. He had found a way, and they were talking about going to a different monetary system. And once he would have gotten away from the dollar, that is why he had to be. And then they planned a coup there. Now look at that country; it's in shambles. None of the countries that you go in and supposedly are helping are in a better shape when they come out.
No.
They're in worse shape. The whole what is the remember the movie? What is the movie that was about the real? Where was it? Was it not Libya? Well, Libya was Gaddafi, but where the Shah of Iran was, and they had the uprising, and they pretended that they were making a movie to get their people out. Remember that movie
Ar-
that was out,
Argo.
Argo? The first 10 minutes of Argo tells you the story. They say that there was a duly elected government. The United States planned a coup and got rid of those people and put the Shah in place. And at that point is when they had a major enemy. And they tell you in the very beginning of that movie the whole then it gets into the story, and then you get into these guys planning the movie and getting out. But they
You
tell you the
know,
basic story when you get the first 10 minutes of the film.
yeah, that's crazy. Do you remember that movie? What was it called? They were planning a pageant. It was oh my God. Uh
Like a beauty pageant.
no, no, no. They were pretending they were doing a pageant where they were pretending like they were like shooting a war as a movie. It was Robert De Niro and oh,
Hmm.
I can't even think of the name of it because we did it at Warner Brothers, but it was such a good movie. But what they had done was they were trying to like deflect. So they were going to plan this war
Right.
and like, but they weren't really doing a war. They were shooting a war like a movie. So they would like deflect on another incident they were doing over here. And that's to me what all of these games that all these colonizing countries do.
Right.
They put something over here, like pay attention to that. Like to me right now, I'm like wondering what they're really doing because here, pay attention to that. We're getting rid of DEI, we're getting rid of all of these things. Like what? To me, that's little stuff. That's chump change. What are you guys actually really doing? Because that doesn't put money in your pocket, which is your ultimate goal.
It's hard to tell with Musk and with well, first of all, these guys have taken over all of the news corporations. You know, all these billionaires have taken over the news corporations. So now they can control what gets said and what doesn't get said. And now, so their whole thing is just getting more money because they don't have enough. It's just not enough to be the richest person in the world. It's not enough for, 100 families to own more than the rest of the world combined. That's just not enough. It just need more. Now, you know, and you look at the list of stuff that wasn't going to be formally celebrated anymore. You let alone King Holiday or Black History Month. I mean, not that they're not going to take away the holiday, but it's not something that they're going to acknowledge like every other administration has acknowledged. Or Juneteenth, or even there's a Jewish Day. There's I don't know about there's a bunch of other things that were on this list that they just put out. Is that they're just trying to roll back time. We're trying to take us back to the 50s.
Yeah, that to me,
Now,
like make the world great again, like for them.
well, the other part about though, back in during those times, corporations paid a much higher tax rate. And that is why the world was a lot better then too, because corporations were paying their fair due back in those days. Now they don't want to bring that part back. They don't want to bring that part back. They're still lowering the taxes on the rich, and then talking about increasing more on the poorer people. I mean, they don't even talk about poor people. People talk about the middle class, but they don't talk about poor people. And and God bless their souls, the poor people who voted for these guys are not going to get anything out of it, and that's really
Oh my
what's
God.
really
You know
sad.
what's so funny? You talk about them controlling the news media. I remember I saw him say it like on video, but Dr. King said, poor people, poor white people believe the lie that rich white people told them that they were better than, without offering them a dime more in their finances or jobs or anything, but they believed the lie.
Right.
I cannot find that anywhere on YouTube, any place. I've searched for it. I cannot find it. It's like disappeared.
Well, that's you see that when it comes to King Holiday, they always do the "I have a dream" speech.
Right.
They don't have. I just there's another film that came out this year but didn't get nominated on Harry Belafonte, and Harry said one of the last conversations he had with Martin Luther King was that he feared he was leading his people into a burning house, meaning we're fighting for all these rights, but we just fear that the country is really a burning house because the greed of the country is just going to eat itself up. There's a thing that Lyndon Johnson said that if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than the black man, you can pick his pocket in the meantime.
Right.
Talking about you can pick the white man can pick the white man's pocket while he's thinking he's better than the black man. And
Exactly.
that is the quote. That's from Lyndon Johnson. So all right. So now, what other movies we watched? Did you watch a Baird?
No, did
Oh,
not watch a
A
Beard.
Ruskin. Okay, okay, Ruskin.
No.
Okay, and then we talked about Selma, right?
Yeah. Well, this
So
is a thing. It's like to me, people, it's people. People, we don't have the empathy and the love for each other that we need to survive like working together. Like
yeah,
to me, people always talk about communism. Oh my God, it's so horrible, blah, blah, blah. The pure idea of communism is a beautiful thing. Everybody's sitting around, kumbaya, sharing. You need another piece of bread, brother, here. But we don't have that anywhere.
yeah,
It's dictatorship by a group of people rather than a single leader. That's all it is.
yeah, yeah. You know, when we look at the leaders that we've had and how they have just been, if they could unify the masses, they had to go. They just had to go. We talked about King. We talked about how Malcolm was. Garvey, was organizing a lot of people, and he had to go. And so now, gave him a pardon, Garvey. I mean, I understand that there's people and the Garvey descendants have been wanting this all this time, but I mean, what is it? What is it? The man was just browbeaten and died, and 50 years ago or longer, and now you're going to give him a pardon. It's just a sad game. Now, here's the other thing too. When hip hop started and rap started, there was a whole movement within the record companies to suppress that which was spoken about change and promote gangster rap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll see Ice Cube and them talk about it, or others that will talk about it. Is that well? You got to listen to like what is it, KS1 or KRS1, whatever. They show you how unhip I am. Or you look at the guys from what was the Fight the Power? What was that group? What's his name? Chuck D, and all those guys will talk about how the West Coast gangster rap was promoted more than other stuff on the radio because they didn't want the political awareness to seep through to the music, because that music started talking about unification, fight the power, which is like the ultimate all-time hip hop or rap
And that's the only rap music I like to listen to.
Yeah,
If you're saying something,
exactly.
they've come out and everybody. And then to me, it's like, I'm sorry, my forefathers are rolling around in the grave. I don't want to own the N word. I don't
Yeah,
want to.
no,
I'm not one. I'm not a
yeah,
good one, a bad one, or whatever.
yeah.
I'm not a
ER,
bit.
AR, all
You
that
know,
foolishness.
I'm not a bitch. I'm not
Yeah,
a good one, a bad one, or whatever. It's like, to me, it's like we own those words. Like,
right.
yeah, miss me with that one.
Yeah, exactly,
Totally miss me
exactly.
with that one.
And it has Black people being the only people promoting a music that talks about, when they talk about the rap battles, and I'll drill your head and like, oh no, 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 no other group is doing that to each other.
Right.
None.
To me, it's like, 'cause as soon as somebody brings out the B word, the N word, and I'm going to get my AK, like, I'm out.
Yeah,
Like, to
right.
me, I like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Talk about something like that you're doing something, that you're going somewhere.
Yeah,
Kendrick
yeah,
Lamar, but all that other stuff, no, thank you.
yeah, yeah. No. So okay, you didn't see Ruskin. Okay, so well, look at King and them on the Selma movie and getting those people together, what they were doing just within the country. You see a young John Lewis in there with his mentors, as they're organizing that march. And those are some brave people. Those are some
Oh,
brave people, and that,
and then the hate is so real that even if you empathize with people that they hate,
right,
you're the bad person. Like those three white men, the minister and the other guy that they just killed because it's like they were black lovers. So
right, right, right. They were the word you didn't want to say, lovers. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Exactly, exactly. Um, I don't know. It's just and
And
then
then to me, they tried to like make him, they're like bugging his house to me. And like, I don't condone the fact that Martin Luther King was not, totally
faithful,
faithful to his wife,
right?
but, them trying to highlight that because it's like, no way are we going to let him be like this amazing person. We're going to have to get some dirt on him somewhere to make something bad about him because we can't let that happen.
But all they
This
had
g-
to do was talk about what the Kennedys were doing.
exactly.
I mean, they talk about what the Kennedys were doing. The whole thing with Marilyn Monroe and all the others. So They say you point one finger, four fingers are pointing back at you. It's like, please, um, that, yeah, there's such a contradiction that it's just like you just can't believe. I mean, so I don't know. This year, I have posted more Black History in 4 days so far, or 3 days of Black History, and going to continue. I mean, and look at the different companies. Look at Target, and how Costco is now full. People are packing Costco because they're not going to Target, which is beautiful. And there's other things, and I'm going to keep with my iPhone for sure now because Apple said that they're not going to pass up on that. And the whole point about it is that all you're doing is just making sure that everybody gets a shot. That's it. That you're not considered because of reasons or ways that you hadn't been considered before.
I know
You know,
for the current president to stand in front of the nation and
mhm.
say that, planes are crashing because
The
they were
DE
DEI hires.
in the
When
mid,
has anybody who has been a marginalized group not had to study 10 times harder to get to wherever they are? What?
but to say that so early when nothing has been investigated, he's just throwing the DEI in there anyway. But see, that's the thing about him. He can get away with doing whatever it is. He doesn't have to apologize. He'll never apologize for having said that. He'll
No.
never apologize for having said that.
What is
Um,
that man who was his mentor who created this
oh,
monster?
Cohen.
Yeah.
But did you see the other film that's nominated, or at least the actor's nominated? I don't know if the film's nominated. Okay, I saw the film. It's called The Apprentice. You need to see
Ah.
that because that is Trump's story and how he came up under Cohen. But what he did with Cohen at the end, excuse me, is that he just totally, once he got everything he got, he just abandoned him. And he was really dying from AIDS at that point. Cohen was dying from AIDS. But yeah, Cohen was his mentor. He told him never apologize, never give up, never, just stretch these court cases because he was an attorney and he became Trump's attorney, and he would get dirt on other people or get people, like if it was a commission that was blocking a sale or something, he'd get dirt on somebody on that commission and force them or get them to change their vote. And I mean, it's just the way he did business. And yeah, so the Apprentice is another film you should see because one of
Mm.
the actors is nominated. Yeah, one of the actors is nominated. The guy who plays Trump is nominated for
Oh,
this
wow.
year. Yeah, yeah,
Ugh.
yeah,
Imagine like you're famous for perpetrating one of the biggest uh monsters in American
yeah.
history.
And the whole point is never, never apologize. Just like the other day at
But
the
that is to
inaugural.
me, you can do that to me if you are a white rich male. Obama couldn't have done that. Like
Oh,
never apologized for anything he did.
well,
No flipping way.
the major scandals in the Obama administration were he wore a tan suit and he and his wife fist bumped.
And his wife wore a tank top.
Yeah.
And then I've seen more of Melania than I ever care to see in
Oh,
my lifetime on the
and one
internet.
and there was one young lady, I guess the daughter-in-law or something, who was half naked up there at the inauguration because she was standing. Well, she wasn't half naked. I should take that back. I'm going a little bit too. But she was, the cleavage was really hanging out there, and I think it wasn't Musk. Who's the other guy? The guy from Facebook. I think it was him. He was standing next
Oh,
to her. You could see him peek.
Zuckerberg.
I think you could see him peeking over. And yeah, it was.
Oh,
You
I
know,
didn't watch any of the
well,
inauguration.
the other
I
thing,
was busy.
yeah, I didn't watch it either, but I saw the highlight when the woman minister got up and talked about having mercy. and how they took such great offense that this woman would dare talk to him like this about having mercy, and and
I know all these Christians, it's like, did you guys read your Bible?
I know. But this female minister, she was talking directly to him, and they hated it. Trump and them hated it because she was saying, "Have mercy on the poor, have mercy on this, that, and the other, and on the immigration." And they just felt they were just being belittled and talked down to it. Oh, it was sad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, when you're king.
when you're king. So yeah, I'm really glad you got to see that film though, because
Oh my God, it was, and the way they did it, juxtaposed to the music, was just, I mean, it was just really, really well done. I haven't seen a documentary that was that interesting in a very long time.
it started to throw me off at the beginning a little bit because the music was in there. I said, okay, yeah. But then as it went on and you started to really hear what was happening and the music, and then it really just took off. But the overall story for those who didn't know about that story, and really understand how that story was, and how like Miriam Makeba was so vital in her fight for South Africa, and it's just really a good film, really a great film.
And remember the young woman who was a woman, a female soldier, and she was talking about how is it that, our country, we have diamonds, we have uranium,
Yeah,
we have gold, and we can't eat.
yeah,
That to me is a question.
yeah, and there's a lot of there's a there was an interview with Malcolm X, and I think it was what's his name? God, I'm trying to think of his name, but anyway, he was talking about
Are you talking
the
about the Cuban? Are you talking about Fidel?
not with Fidel, but that whole part was interesting.
Yeah,
Fidel coming to and then going and staying in Harlem, when he
exactly.
could, and he went to Harlem, and I remember that, and it was a big deal, and that Malcolm went and saw him in Harlem, and how he said, well, I'll just go over here with my people, and he stayed in Harlem. But it was a thing where it was Mike Wallace was interviewing Malcolm. He says, and these African nations, they're so corrupt. And Malcolm said, how dare you talk about corruption? These countries are fledglings and they're finding their way. And you're going to talk about a country that supported lynching? And he just went on. Don't
Oh,
you
and
dare
also
talk.
too, one of the things he said too at the beginning of the documentary, he
Yeah.
said that he said freedom. You're talking about freedom. These people are talking about freedom in the Congo, and they have a whole country where they have citizens that are not allowed to go places,
The
and they have the
majority.
audacity to talk about being free.
Yeah. Yeah. The majority of the people can't go where they want to go. That's, yeah, it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like so happy. In fact, Regina couldn't join us tonight, but she's watching it. She said that, it was very interesting. I said, "Yeah, you have to watch it. It's beautifully done." I
Yeah.
didn't really get to look up the cinematographer nor the director, but I really want to find out what else they've done, because this was really important
Yeah.
information. And important information because it's like history is something people keep on saying is, oh, we're gonna, close these books and we're gonna not gonna talk about that anymore. And we're gonna, but to me, this this right here that they had in 1960 is starting to have, like, the feels of of years before again.
Well, no, it does repeat itself. Actually, right now, we're kind of reliving um, what is it, Reconstruction. Like Reconstruction happened after the Civil War. And while Reconstruction was happening, a lot of Black people got elected to Congress and to a lot of positions. And people were starting to Black people. I mean, the majority of the people had never been on their own and were just lost, didn't have anywhere to go. But there were Black people who were elected to offices, And then when the federal troops left the South and the Klan took over again, that's, the post Reconstruction, and everything went back to their way the South wanted it, and, the lynchings and all of that. We are, not that we necessarily have the lynchings, but we're having the freedom lynchings of take back the schools and don't teach this. So we're in the second time, the second um, post what do you call it, Reconstruction era again, and it's just repeating
But
itself.
but I'm saying is we still are having lynchings. I mean, they just did one like about probably 4 or 5 years ago. And
Oh
then
yeah,
about 10 years ago, they drug a man from a truck till his body fell apart.
yeah,
I couldn't believe like in this century
yeah.
that happening at all. And
Well,
that
and
we
then
weren't like out. I mean, the outrage wasn't even big enough to me.
and then the guy they chased down the street because he was jogging and got shot.
Yes.
So yeah, no, this stuff is still happening. That's for sure.
And
Um,
then this new to me this new kind of lynching we were talking about it, where you know racist white women will start screaming like they're being attacked, knowing the outcome is possibly this person getting shot. Crazy.
the so-called Karens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. No, I don't know. It's Martin Luther King. I think I'm leading my people into a burning house. You know, you wonder sometimes, is it worth it? There's a lot of people who are looking at going back to Ghana in particular and stuff like that. I don't know. I've got 18 great grandchildren and 9 grandchildren, and 2 of them are under 6 months old. And I just wonder, what is going to happen with them. I know in 1968 we were going to change the world. When we get through with this, it's going to be over. And so now I just turned 75, and it ain't over.
And
It
it's start
ain't.
and the fact that it's starting all over
It's
again.
starting all over again. It's like you're
It's
just
like to
kind
me
of
it's like I'm
you're on a
tired of
treadmill. You're on a treadmill. You're just
I'm
on a
tired
treadmill.
of being tired. I'm
Yeah,
tired of being tired of
yeah,
it, waiting for it to get better.
yeah. Sick and tired of being tired. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, I probably, maybe eventually, but the fact that you brought that movie up, I mean, Selma was great and it was part of an era in our lives, but I didn't know anything about that. And
Yeah,
that was eye-opening to
yeah.
to me, what rich people with power will do.
Will do. And what they're doing now. What I mean,
Yeah.
the point that Elon's up in the. He's not even elected. What did they say today? He's a special employee of the. So, they make up something new every day. I mean,
Right.
it's
And then to me, it'd be to be entitled to my social security number in my business. Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy and scary.
It
Who
is.
knows what he'll do?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. This whole thing with TikTok, who gets to buy TikTok? Will he buy TikTok, or one of those guys buy TikTok? They're over there fighting over that now, and what they're going to do with
Wag,
it.
oh, the movie I was talking about where they were
Oh,
doing the
Wag the
wag the
dog.
dog. Yeah. Because that's what it feels like. A bunch of like staged things,
Ah,
like
yeah.
staged things. Oh, we're gonna get rid of TikTok and blah blah blah. We're gonna do it, and all these people, all young people, are like, this is terrible, blah blah blah. And they were like, cut it off at midnight, and then, oh my God, Trump's gonna save TikTok, even though he's the one who is making it go away in the first place. And then, oh, okay, then it's not gonna happen. And then at his inauguration, the guy who owns TikTok and Chinese government is there. It's like it just feels like a wag the dog,
It's just a big.
continually staged garbage.
It is, and that's what it is. That's what it is. And you get into it, and it's just sad that how people just buy into it. Yeah.
Oh, this one girl, like how we're, how, and I was just looking at this thing going, really? Somebody else loving somebody else really bothers you so much that you have to post about it? Like, what's wrong? To me, it's like, if it bothers you that much, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. And now see the whole thing, and I have to show my age. The he, his, her, that I don't pronouns. I don't have it. I don't have that. I'm just going to be old and just do whatever I do and make sure I'm not offending anybody. But if this is what they're doing and they've got that, that's fine with me. Just do that. You do that. You do whatever. But I let everybody make their own peace in their
Yeah,
world. As long as
right.
they're not imposing something on me, that's fine.
Exactly.
But it's just anyway. Yeah.
It was a sad, I'll tell you this one last story before we go, but it was really sad. I was watching one of the actresses on Orange is the New Black. She posted this woman who was at an airport. She was leaving. She was like, I'm sorry. I wish I could be here with you guys and this, that, and the other. I think she was transgender. And she was saying, but I've got to go and I've got my passport and I'm at the airport and I'm already set. And then she says, I'm looking on Instagram, watching this woman who is at the passport office trying to get her passport, and they says, oh, we can't mark you as female. She says, okay, fine, just mark me male, because I just want to get out of the country. So they leave for like 20 minutes and they come back and they says, we can't give you a passport. So I'm like thinking, what is your plan? What is your plan?
Right. Right.
You don't like trans, let them go. Why would you keep them here on, like, I don't know, like a prisoner? If you don't want them here, just let them go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You're trying to make sense out of no sense. You can't do it.
Yeah, to me,
You can't,
yeah,
you
it's
can't do it.
not logically. I'm like going, huh?
Yeah, but that's the problem. You're trying to apply logic to people that don't have any. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm telling you but that's what's scary to me. The agenda is real. I just don't know what it is
Yeah. Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
So we can't
Exactly.
even like fight. And then it's another thing. We're talking about technology and all of this stuff, now that we have before when we didn't, when we were marching. Problem is with that technology, you can't plan on something on the phone. You can't plan a march on the phone. They're listening.
Oh,
You
the
can't
Big Brother,
send
the
an
whole
email. Yeah,
1984, the whole
yeah.
1984,
You
Big
can't
Brother,
email somebyou
you know, it's, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I thank you so much for the suggestion and being here. And we're gonna do Rustin the
Yeah.
next
Russ.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's
And
fine.
then I will listen to
Oh, and
another
then,
couple of
watch The Apprentice so that you'll really
oh,
know
Prentice.
The Apprentice, so you really know, not that you really want to know much more about him, but
Not much more.
what's really going to, I'll tell you what's really going to, and it may not be because Elon has so much money, but when you see how he did Cohen in The Apprentice, I'm thinking that he may do Elon the same way once he gets through using him. Because,
Ugh.
yeah, so we'll just see how that plays out. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he said, I mean, he has like I think he has some kind of um learning sort of disability, so he might flip totally out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the whole Hitler thing, which the whole salute, it's just like, oh
The
my
salute that wasn't a salute,
God, there
it
wasn't
was just
salute.
my heart goes out to you.
Please,
That garbage. Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
All right.
Well, anyway, looking forward to talking to you again, and thank you
Okay.
so very much for everything.
My pleasure. Seriously, my pleasure. Happy Black History Month. Take care.
Yes, to me, the Americans, Black people who contributed a lot to the American History Month.
There you go. And on that note, take care.
Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.